Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now, today I've got a few topics to discuss and talk about with you guys and girls. Amazon Games gave us some information about one or two things, and we also got a new article which we're going to go over and have a look at now. It's basically discussing how the loot distribution works. Now, many people like myself already, we already had an idea, of course, of how loot distro works, because obviously, I've played the game since day one in Korea, but I never knew like the exact nitty gritty and the exact percentages, because we just didn't know that information. But Amazon Games has gone ahead. If I pull it up here, you can see here the loot distribution rules. So they've gone ahead and posted this information here. Obviously, it's a lot of jargon. So I'm gonna, try and go through this and try and explain it as best as I can. But anyway, so contribution is earned by doing damage against the enemy and healing friendly players in battle whilst the said enemy is active. Contribution from healing is acquired for healing players both in and out of your party when participating in guild level events, so the open world bosses basically. So guys, if you're a healer, this is very important. Now you should be doing this anyway, but as a healer, a lot of people I've seen a lot of people, they tend to just only heal their party. But when you're doing a open world PvP boss fight with your guild, or even the PvE events, try to always look out for your fellow allies and do some cross heals across the groups. Don't just focus only on your party. Obviously your party is your number one, but if your party is fully healed up and you can see somebody else in your guild needs some healing, just heal them. And as you can now see, it's been clarified, you're going to actually get more contribution for doing that, so it's in your best interest. So event items, loot dropped during dynamic events that is collected to turn in. For example, the wolf tails in the wolf hunting event. And then here is how it basically works. So open world farming, so the abyss dungeons, the quests, contracts, dynamic events, or the co-op dungeons, excluding the final reward chest, of course. Applicable enemies, normal enemies, elite enemies, and party elite. Right, so this is the interesting bit here. When an enemy dies, loot is assigned to the player who first earned contribution, so dealt damage in this case to the said enemy. If the player is in a group, the loot is assigned to the player's party instead. In this case, the drops from the enemy have equal chance of distro across all of the party members. The only exception is party members that have no contribution and are out of range. Okay, so for example, if we're farming together on Saradoma Island and one of you is all the way on the top of the island, but the remainder of the group is down below, you're going to be out of that loot pool, so you're not going to count. So that's one thing to make sure. I didn't actually know that. Because obviously we've never had this clarified, so that's actually interesting to know. All items are evenly distributed when possible. So if there is 10 items dropped for a party of 5, each player should receive 2 items. If even distro is not possible, it will randomly select a player/players. Oh, okay, so you have a chance to receive an extra drop. Interesting. But the Solent and the experience is distributed evenly. Okay. Right, so peace boss mode and the guild raids. This is what I wanted to know. Okay, so when you're in a peaceful boss mode, all players are sorted by individual player contribution. A guild's overall contribution does not play a role for peace mode. Okay. So this is really interesting, because even as a guild, even for peace mode, we would, you would prioritize going together as a guild to, try and get as much contribution like together as a guild. But obviously it doesn't actually matter. It matters in a sense of obviously you would rather get somebody in your guild to get the drop. So if there's more of your guild there, then obviously your guild as a whole has a higher chance. But it's interesting to see that it's actually individual. I didn't know that it was individual contribution. Interesting. So that is why so a single player is only eligible to receive one of the drops. In other words, a single player cannot receive more than one epic equipment. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So an example, let's assume that a field boss drops the following loot: 1 sword, 1 mask, and 1,000 solen. Random drops 1 times boots. Okay, so you need a 3% chance. You would have a 3% chance. If you did 3% of the damage, you would have a 3% chance of requiring either the sword or the mask. And then all of the players that met the minimum contribution requirement would have an equal chance to acquire the boots, regardless of total contribution. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then when it comes to the conflict bosses, obviously you go with your guild. You're trying to deny the enemy guild's contribution, basically. That's the whole point of the conflict PvP bosses, is to deny the enemy's contribution. And when you die, I did know this. This is one thing I did know. So unlike in the peace boss modes, dying to an enemy or another player during the conflict boss mode, you lose 70% of your individual contribution, meaning that it obviously reduces the guild's total. So the more times people in your guild dies, their individual contribution drops down lower and lower and lower. So then that obviously drags your guild's contribution down lower and lower. So if players A, B, and C had 10, 15, and 20 contribution, respectively, and they all belong to the same guild, then the guild's total contribution would be 45%. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's that's fine. This is one that we basically already knew. That's not a problem. So yeah. So your main prior is to, as I said, just try and stay alive as long as you can, and then obviously get as many kills of the enemy as you can. Now, one thing that they are going to be doing, I'm not sure if it's going to be in this week's patch or the next week's one, but we're going to be getting a contribution meter. So you'll be able to see the enemy guild's contribution. So for example, it will say, Guild A has 65% contribution, Guild B has, 45, and then, Guild C has 10%. So then to start focusing on Guild A because they have the top contribution. So you want to kill as many of Guild A members as you can to bring their contribution down, and then obviously bring yours up. But yeah, anyway, that's the information about the loot distribution. I will, of course, as always, have that link in the description box down below. Now, the next thing, 2 more things, we now officially have confirmation about the siege. That's right. So siege has been fully confirmed. We was thinking maybe it was going to be this Sunday, but we now know it's basically going to be Sunday, the 17th of November. I'll pop the picture up on the screen for you guys and girls right now. And then the last thing before I wrap the video up, there's been a bug on this most recent update where the player count, no matter what you have it on, if you have it on epic or you had it on like high or medium, the setting is acting as if it's basically being forced to go on to low. And we've been obviously telling everyone that certain ways to fix this was, trying to go into the files to try and force it on the notepad, to try and reset your settings to epic. But for many people, it wasn't fixing it. It was fixing it for some people, but like myself, it hasn't fixed the problem. But finally, Amazon Game Studios, they have spoke up about this, and they have said they're aware and they're working on a fix for this. So because basically the game is unplayable in large scale PvP, you're basically playing with a low player count. So you're dying from people that you can't even see is on the screen. So it's very, very frustrating, but at least there's a fix coming. And yeah, that's going to be it. That's for the news for today, everybody. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care. Peace.